We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
In 5, 4, 3.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks again for watching. We'll leave you with Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away.
I'm the cult of personality. The cult of personality.
Add it to the blacklist. I never want to hear that music again. Once prosperous nation.
I'm the cult of personality. The cult of personality.
Add it to the blacklist. I never want to hear that music again.
Hello, everybody. My name is Isaac Jasper. This is Ryan Wilson, and we are on the Indigenous Nightmare Network. We are your hosts, and we are joined today for a special conversation regarding not just Leonard Peltier, but also political prisoners, indigeneity, self-determination, sovereignty, anti-imperialism. All of these will be exemplified within this conversation. We have Opium Sabah, who is an artist, damn good artist, by the way, I have to say. And is a part of the ad hoc committee that I am a part of that is in hopes, is not just in hopes, but in action, is working to free Leonard Peltier, whether that is leveraging this occupational system to give executive clemency via Jim Crow Joe, or whether it be us working together as a unit to legally get Leonard Peltier free. So I just want to say thank you, Opium, for coming on. I know you were supposed to be on a little earlier in the week, but, you know, due to family issues, just life and of itself, you know, we weren't able to make it happen, but I'm glad that we're able to sit down today. It's really I'm glad to have you on.
Yes, thank you, comrade. Definitely a pleasure to be here. As you said, we couldn't make it happen last week, but definitely glad to be here now and to, have this be hopefully an ongoing thing and an ongoing conversation, as you said, not just about Leonard, but about all political prisoners, because I feel like in this country and just generally speaking, there's a lack of knowledge of how many political prisoners that are incarcerated in this country as well as abroad. I'm also part of the National Jericho movement. I'm the co-chair of the Oakland Jericho chapter. For those who are unaware, we're a national organization who helps, we represent a bunch of different political prisoners, and we help them with everything from, lawyer fees, assisting their family to be able to go get to wherever they're being incarcerated and visit them. Making sure that, things legally that are, the prison is supposed to be doing, that's happening, making sure they have, money on their books for, writing, supplies, food, all that kind of stuff. So that, in addition to being, Cherokee Native and being taught about Leonard as a very young child and, going to powwows and all that kind of stuff. Working with Jericho kind of led me to being part of the ad hoc committee and to now, working with you, Jasper.
Yeah. And, just for clarity and transparency, we have 7 Indigenous people on the board, ad hoc committee, if I'm not mistaken, all of which who are Indigenous. And we have a multitude of individuals that are not Indigenous that sit on the board. But we all work together in cohesiveness to make sure that Leonard's words get out there, that Leonard is tended to, that people know that Leonard is still alive, that Leonard is still a political prisoner, is the longest standing political prisoner in the occupation of Turtle Island. And so, we'll be getting into that. And I want to start this conversation off with, how did you come across Leonard Peltier, and how has he transformed your life, essentially, in the last, I would have to say, let's put a number on it, the last couple of years, like what has this journey been like to get to where you're at now, where you sit on the board for Leonard and, not just sit on the board. You do toy drives. You go to events. You were just recently in Santa Cruz with Tracker, speaking in advocacy of Leonard Peltier and other political prisoners. So it's like, how did you get to this point in your life where, you know, you're fully invested, more than I can say I am, into this project, into this liberation movement?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you for asking that. I definitely think, you know, that's a kind of important for people to know and understand. I mean, Leonard was the first political prisoner. My parents were big activists, anarchists. You know, I was one of those kids who grew up like, you know, first time I ever went to like a march in the streets, I was like 10, 11 years old. I still remember my parents being like, hey, if we get split up, we're going to meet here. And, you know, you have your ID. Yeah, I have my ID. You have your ID. And that was a normal, you know, that was a normal kind of thing in my family. So anyway, Leonard was the first political prisoner that my family ever taught me about and said, like, you know, my father is from North Africa, from Algeria. We're Berber Jews from North Africa. But it was always very important to my father to teach me about both sides of my bloodline and my culture and my history. And so Leonard was kind of the first political prisoner that I was ever spoken to and, you know, learned about. So, of course, I've always been a supporter of Leonard for many, many years. I produced an album for a political prisoner who's now free, Jalil Muntakim, who was very instrumental in basically starting the Jericho movement. The Jericho movement came out of political prisoners who were locked up saying, you know what, there's not enough resources. There's no one to help us with things that we need help while incarcerated. So anyway, through that work and getting involved with them, I said, oh, wow, Leonard is one of the, you know, prisoners that they represent, which definitely, you know, drew me in. And I'm very humbled and feel very blessed to, you know, be on the board and to be part of helping build awareness and to ultimately get Leonard out. So basically, through my work with Jericho, I had got connected with Dawn, and before the ad hoc committee kind of, you know, became a committee, and I said, hey, you know, I did this album for Jalil years ago. I would love to do a compilation for Leonard. And they said, oh, Leonard's been wanting this to happen for a long time. I should also mention my father, Chevy Sabah. He was a very well-known, big world music producer and world music DJ. He kind of started the trend of mixing traditional music from North Africa and the Middle East, as well as India. He would go to that country, record the traditional music, and then kind of bring it back here and put a modern element over it. So I very much grew up in that, you know, in the background of all that, kind of watching, learning from my father. So anyway, I wanted to do something similar for Leonard, and I kind of got put in contact with him through Dawn and other people, and it just kind of started happening. And from there, I was asked to join the committee, which, you know, I was very honored to be asked to do that. And yeah, here we are. I've become very involved in a lot of speaking events, doing the toy drives. I do all the social media for the committee. And yeah, just, you know, feel very blessed and honored to be part of this and to be helping Leonard and be part of that, you know.
Yeah, and for my viewers, how I came in contact with not just Opium, with the ad hoc committee, with Dawn, was through Kalanji Changa. So I can't sit here and say like I was scouted by the ad hoc committee. I was invited via someone putting the word out and saying, hey, I want to be part of this committee if I can't have my road dog with me. If I can't have, you know, he calls me his alter ego.
Right.
You know, so I'm deeply thankful for it. And I'm also deeply thankful that Leonard would even approve of someone like me, because it goes to show you that, one, the work is being done. What we do here on this network is vital. Shout out to Vital Hoops podcast, also part of Black Power Media Reloaded. So I'm deeply proud of this committee, and I genuinely feel like next year is going to be a big year for Leonard, and hopefully the year that frees him.
Yeah.
And so if we could get into just Leonard's situation as a whole medically, it is arguably one of the it's a hard topic to talk about because it's riddled in elder abuse. It's riddled in what we call, or at least what I call, death by incarceration. It is riddled in everything that could be known as contemporary slavery. And so if you could just give us a brief breakdown of Leonard's medical history over the years from what you know, and kind of where it's at now. And I want to emphasize to those that are watching, that there's not a whole lot of time, and we need all the help that we could potentially get to make sure that Leonard is free, because these conditions that he has are easily reversible, as it's been stated, but the system that he is confined to is making it physically and verbally impossible, to reason with, or even to come to the table to try and figure out a reasonable way to get Leonard to Rochester Medical Center, so that way, or medical facility, so that way he can get his treatment. But if you could just break down just the severity of his medical condition.
Yeah, definitely. As you said, this is definitely a hard subject to speak about and to swallow. I know a lot of times, we have this conception of political prisoners, of when they were first, incarcerated or locked down, or we associate like old pictures with them. But, Leonard is definitely an elder now. He's been in prison for, we'll just say 50 years. And any elder, any person who, is in their older years, they're going to need certain medical attention. You need to start paying attention to, certain things with your body, more and more as you get older, right? And for those who don't know or who aren't aware, Coleman has some of the worst conditions. Just their cells, it's in Florida. It's very humid there, so you're in this like kind of cold, damp, humid cell, and then on top of the horrible conditions, you add the neglect of not even paying attention to medical issues, but just flat out being denied and just not paid attention to. So there's quite a few things. Leonard has some issues with his teeth that he really needs to see a dentist and get that figured out. He's on a walker. He has some issues where he needed I believe one of the CPAP machines.
No,
and they basically said, okay, yeah, you can have the machine, but knowing that there's no outlets in the cell to plug in the machine, and that was something that just I couldn't believe it, and I was just like really enraging.
When I heard that, I felt the same way. Like that, for whatever reason, that the cruelty of that exact thing, it just to the whole thing, but it really like frames it about just how cruel it actually is what they're doing to this poor man.
Yeah. And, and in their eyes, the COs and the guards and whatever, they're an extension of the government. They're an extension of the police. So they're looking at Leonard like, oh, he killed one of our own, or, whatever. So he's not, people think like, oh, they have to treat the prisoners this way. And no, that's not, there's no one else around. No one's looking, no one's watching. And, it's not a good environment. It's not a good situation for anyone in there, let alone someone like Leonard, who's been, accused of the type of crime that he's been accused of.
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, he's on a walker. From what I understand, they're like, he's been handcuffed at times when he's like supposed to take a shower. And we're talking about an elder. We're talking about an older man here who needs a walker to walk. And I don't know about you, but I don't even know how I would take a shower with a walker, let alone handcuffed to the pipe that the shower is connected to, or whatever. So there's a lot of other medical issues that are going on. I mean, it would take me forever, like literally to list all of them. Those are some of the main ones that really need to get addressed, and they're just not being addressed. And as the name of this show is, and as you've stated, death by incarceration. This is not a new term or a new idea to people like us that are involved in activism and community work. This is something that we've seen happen before. Matulu had cancer. They finally said, okay, we're going to let you out, because they basically knew that his days were very numbered. And I think, God rest his soul, and, prayers up to Matulu. But I don't even know if it was a year before he he transitioned from being sick and having cancer. And this has been something that's happened with other political prisoners too. So it's definitely spiteful and intentional. And we really need this transfer. He deserves this transfer, regardless of what you may think or what you may agree or not agree with. The man, any prisoner in America is supposed to have access to certain rights, medical being one of them. And they're not only are they constantly on lockdowns, and they're basically saying, oh, the medical stuff's not going to happen because we're on lockdowns, but they don't, to my knowledge, they don't even have the resources to do what needs to be done there, which even more, hammers in the fact that he needs to be transferred to Rochester or one of these other facilities to where these medical needs can be addressed,
Yeah. And we've been advocating for this before even the parole hearing for him to be transferred to Rochester.
Yeah.
And so this just goes to show you the sheer severity of this issue. One thing that, and this might have been just because there's so many ailments that this system has implemented onto Leonard. I don't know if you had mentioned that he is blind now. Which makes it physically impossible for him to paint, for him to read and catch up on what's going on, outside of the walls that he is confined under. And so it's a serious situation, and this is elder abuse at its highest stage. This is contemporary death by incarceration at its highest stage. I always go back to, how they treated my indigenous ancestors in the Bay Area by forcibly making them build adobe missions, ravaging their villages. The mission system in of it itself was a prison industrial complex. And I see contemporary versions of what they did to my people. I see it very clear in what they're doing to Leonard Peltier. And so it's very serious. It's a very serious situation. And I see people, always trying to factor in, the situation. Well, he killed an agent, or he killed a Native woman. All of that is false. All of that is fabricated evidence that, or so-called evidence that was used to try and justify Leonard Peltier being a fall guy for a situation that we know the FBI orchestrated. That FBI is the one who should be at blame, which is why Leonard is behind, essentially behind bars. I don't want to get too far into the legal stuff, just because that's not my realm of the ad hoc committee, but I do.
No, definitely.
I do dabble in truth, though. So
yeah, for sure. And I will just say that, this goes to show you like the lengths that the government and the FBI is willing to go, especially to an indigenous person that has stood up against them in defiance, as you know, as Lenny Foster, who is Leonard's spiritual advisor, also the spiritual advisor of the ad hoc committee and one of the board members. He said many times, you know, this is a personal vendetta, you know, from Custer getting killed and the 7th Cavalry, you know, the FBI, the government, the police, they're all an extension of that. And Leonard follows in the footsteps of his ancestors of standing up for his people, you know, in the name of resistance, and saying like, no, this is our land, this is our culture, and I'm not just going to sit down and let you take it and change it and distort it. And unfortunately, this is what happens when people like that stand up. And you know, we've seen many other political prisoners be railroaded for standing up against you know, against the powers that be, so to speak. Exactly. But especially given the history of this country with indigenous people, you know, when an indigenous person does it, it's like, oh, we have to shut this shit down, because they don't want that, and they don't want anyone's voice uniting people, you know. And it's a very Leonard is very concerned and always trying to move things forward for his people, but it's very much the native way to have, you know, care and concern for all peoples, not just indigenous people, just humankind as in general, you know. And that's something that kind of blows my mind, because after all that Leonard's been through and gone through, a big amount of his concern falls on, you know, what on how his people are doing, how they're progressing, how they're moving forward. He's involved with many different things, like you spoke about the toy drive. He does that every year. He's had a program where he brings electricity to homes on the res for people that can't afford it. You know, winters get very cold there. He has programs to teach young indigenous men on the res carpentry and how to build homes, so they can, you know, so they can have an actual skill that they can move forward with in life. So you know, there's a lot that he's doing for his people currently and in the past and ongoing.
Yeah, and I just wanted to highlight what you just said is that this man has been behind bars for 50 years, but yet has still been able to put himself in a position to help his people. So again, yeah, people need to really understand the importance of Leonard, the sheer importance of him as a, not just an elder now, but also as a pillar for resistance. And so I wanted to shout out the toy drive while I have you on screen. Okay. For those that don't know, Leonard Peltier does a toy drive for Pine Ridge. For decades, Leonard has worked to get into the hands of children on Pine Ridge Reservation on Christmas, giving them toys. There are drop-off zones in the Bay Area to drop off toys at Opium at freeleonardpeltier.org, freeleonardpeltiernow.org. Bay Area Toy Drive event to be announced. Has that already happened by any chance, just for clarity for those that don't?
No, it hasn't happened. We were having some issues with the venue. I kind of had something in place, and then they were dealing with some stuff. They're not going to be open now, so I'm not sure that we're going to have an event this year. But if you're in the Bay Area and you want to drop off toys, that's definitely that can definitely happen. You can email me. You can also hit me up on Instagram at OPIUM_SABBAH. You can also hit up our website, freeleonardpeltiernow.org, and hit up the donate page. We also have a link in our bio on our Instagram, which is at @IamPeltier. And when you donate, just in parentheses, put the word toy drive, and the money will be sent out to Pine Ridge. And, you know, I should also add, Pine Ridge is, I believe it's like the poorest community in America. Yes. even reservation wise, it's like one of the worst conditions. And without and big ups to all the people who have already donated to the toy drive. We've definitely been, having a lot of people be generous this year. And these kids, without your donations, these kids would have no Christmas. They would have no gifts. They're in extreme situations of poverty, and their parents would not be able to even afford a gift for them. So this really is a good thing to do, for the holidays, and to support, if you're Indigenous, to support your people. If you're not Indigenous, this helps and supports Indigenous kids on the res.
Yeah, this is very essential. A big part of solidarity is actually physically and financially putting yourself in a position to help people that need it. Leonard Peltier, like how you said, behind bars has been giving toys to children, making these events possible, electricity on Pine Ridge. And yes, Pine Ridge is the poorest community in the occupied territories of Turtle Island. And we have to, as Chairman O'Malley Shatella of the Uhuru movement specified, is that these are not reservations. These are concentration camps on an occupied land. These lands are occupied by entities for which that have European history. They have European blood. And the only way that we fix this is by combating the system the same way that Leonard did, and also by implementing ourselves in a position to do things like this charitable work that helps Indigenous individuals, that helps children put a smile on their face. That's the biggest thing for me, is that we live in a world where I think children aren't put as a priority in regards to how they should be treated. And this is just a side note, but I'll be doing a personal or hopefully Ryan, if you want to join me, but there's a woman who's been abusing her child on TikTok and videoing it. And so I'm going to be doing an episode, or this network will, in regards to how I just said, kids are not put as a priority in regards to how they are treated under the system, or how the system treats them. And so it was a big problem. It's a big problem for me when people can't see that children are deeply affected by these issues. They're deeply affected at the fact that, they live under a concentration camp that is then ran by an occupational force that deems them inhuman. And that's just the bottom line. That's just how this system recognizes, us Indigenous people. So yeah, if you can support, help out by any means necessary, it's up on the screen for those. And I'll probably bring it up a little bit later on as well. I wanted to get into a conversation with you in regards to, hold on, I'm trying to fix something here. There we go. I wanted to talk to you in regards to, what are the next steps for this ad hoc community moving forward that you think we should be highlighting moving into the new year for Leonard? Any events that potentially are coming up in regards to, I know we have a lot of people right now asking for, well, let's first start here, because I feel like I jumped the gun a little bit.
No, I know there's a lot to cover. It's like, okay, what do we get on next here?
Yeah. So yesterday we were advocating. I actually did speak about Leonard yesterday. Spoke about political prisoners. Actually tried to finish up a 30-page document that I wrote up in regards to political prisoners.
And you were trying to educate me on the difference between executive clemency and
pardoning.
Right?
Pardoning.
Because a lot of people are confusing the two, and that's something that really needs to get out there in the public sphere, right? Because he's not asking for one, but like the other is the only thing that he'll take, right? If I'm understanding it right.
Well,
and
they want him to admit to something that he didn't do, and that's something that Leonard himself has said that he's not going to do. If you could, though, Opium, just explain why we're asking for executive clemency, not pardoning, because pardoning means he did something wrong. You know?
Well, yeah, exactly. A pardon would imply that you're being excused, if you will, for the crime in question, which would also imply that you were guilty of that. And Leonard has been very adamant for the past 50 years that he did not do this. You know, I'll just say there's a lot of supporting evidence of, you know, tampering and all kinds of stuff that have happened since the very beginning of this that support that. But again, a pardon would imply that he's being excused for something that he did, and that's not something he is willing to do. So yes, there is a campaign right now that we are endorsing, supporting, promoting, etc., through Amnesty International, asking Biden to grant him executive clemency, as Isaac stated. And a lot of people have been hitting us up on social media about this. Oh, you know, but there's definitely, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because there's definitely misconception. A lot of people hit us up on socials and they're like, oh, you know, what about Biden? Are we going to, you know, are you guys going to ask for a pardon? But no, we're not going to ask for a pardon. We're asking for executive clemency. And again, all of this stuff is on our social media. We just put something out earlier this week that has all the info for Amnesty International. You can also get all this information on our website, freeleonardpeltiernow.org. When you go on there, I would highly suggest you sign up for our Action Network. That's our newsletter, and all of these kind of things. You'll get a newsletter blast as soon as it becomes available to the public. Being connected with us on social media is also a great way to stay in the know of what's happening.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question real quick?
No, you can't, Ryan. No,
right. No. I would just like, if you wouldn't mind, just for the viewers and you know, because me and Isaac talked about this off air, but I would like to hear what you had to say about the difference, because he's had opportunities to get out, right? If he would just in some way admit to this thing that we all know that he did not do, and
right,
he is still there for the simple fact that he refuses to give them the one thing that they want, and that's an apology for a thing that he did not do. Right.
Yeah. And there, you know, over the years, this has been something that has come up, and you know, people have been like, oh, if he just apologized for what happened 50 years ago, then maybe they'll grant him parole. But that is not something he's going to do. He did not commit the crime. He's not gonna say that he did something that he didn't, you know. And this would also, in my eyes, would in some way, you know, excuse or pull the wool over our eyes more as to all the lengths that the FBI has gone to keep him in prison and to tamper with evidence and to coerce witnesses, and the list goes on and on and on. It would ease the spotlight off all that a bit if he were to do that. But that's not something that he's willing to do. And you know, I have a super high amount of respect for the man for like sticking to his guns, so to speak, and his values, and standing up for his people and being like, hey, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not guilty of this crime, and I'm not gonna say that that's what I did.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to hear, because I think that needs to be out there, because that's a big part of the story, right? And that's a big part of who Leonard is, and a big part of why it's important that we stand on principles to fight for what he wants to get out, what he needs in order for him to get out, which is the executive clemency, and not just settle for pardons and like the, you know, why the words matter, because like he is standing on principle, and he's standing for not just himself, but his community and his nations. And like, it's really powerful. And it's really, I think it's an important piece to the puzzle.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's like at this point, Leonard is an elder. Like I don't know what they think's going to happen if they let him out. Like some Indian uprising and revolution's gonna happen. Like the man,
we're not even there yet.
right? Hey, I really wish that was the case.
I wish that would too.
That like the man's 80 years old. He just wants to go to the the land he has and like be with his family and and enjoy his last days on on his indigenous land and be with his family. I mean, sometimes when I speak at these events, I tell people, I say, Leonard has been in prison for 48 years. I'm 47 years old. I didn't start learning about Leonard until I was like probably, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years old. But, sometimes I sit back and think like, wow, this man has been in prison longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
Everything I've like matured through, grown into, learned, hard lessons, good lessons, all that stuff that I've gone through in 47 years. This man has been like sitting in a prison cell somewhere for standing up for his people.
Yeah, and it's such an eye opener, and it's a head scratcher. Because it's like we live in a society where like this is a fucking reality. This torture is again a reality.
Yes.
What they're doing to him is torture. The biggest thing for me again is the fact is one of the biggest things is one of the things that you highlighted. I'm 27 years old, so he's been in there twice my age. Okay,
right,
twice my age, and he has kids that are my age, grandchildren that are my age, that he hasn't seen, he doesn't know, he hasn't met yet, and I just want people to go through that. That's like imagine your mom,
right,
or your dad,
right,
being put in prison for 50 years, okay, and then you having children, and then your children's children, your children having children, and you not knowing any of those people. That's right. That's the reality that Leonard lives in. Is
and don't even think about Leonard. Think about your own family. Think about like how that would affect you.
Exactly.
Like,
how that internally would just crush you. It would crush you to know that your father is innocent, but yet has to live 50 years behind bars for a crime that he didn't commit. But again, we have to factor in, he's being used as an example of this is what happens when you go against an imperialist state.
Exactly.
And that's what we have to highlight all together, is that he's being made out to be an example so that us, the people, the ones who really know what should be going on in happening.
He's a personification of America's original sin, right? Like he personifies the United States' original sin. And which is their treatment of the indigenous, and so like this is a matter of like they can't let this guy out with anything other than like him saying that he had done it, right? Because if they admit that they had him in jail all this time, then they have to admit it starts the ball rolling on a bunch of stuff that they really, really, really don't want to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was kind of alluding to earlier, is that, for him to admit or to apologize, not only does that go against, his beliefs and his morals and whatnot, but it takes away from everything that they've been doing this whole time.
Yes.
Yeah. I would like to take breaks over here, Opium. So we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be back though. Enjoy some words from. I'm gonna play some Val Lopez because I gotta refresh my coffee. I gotta refresh.
So what, like maybe 5 minutes or so? Or less.
More like 9 minutes.
Okay, that works. So I have time to go have a cigarette then.
Yeah. So we'll be back, you guys. Until then, enjoy some words from Valentin Lopez. from the Amamutsan tribe, Ohlone Amamutsan tribe. So one of my relatives, distant, not direct, enjoy, I wouldn't say enjoy the words, but just listen to how these forms of slavery, contemporary slavery, existed back then, and how they did what they're doing to Leonard, they did to my people, and they continue to do to our people. So we'll be back, you guys. Enjoy this decolonial interlude. We'll be back in a bit.
The true history of California has never been told. The history of California is really disgraceful and shameful. California Indian history does not begin with the Spanish expedition coming into California in 1769. California Indian history actually begins with Pope Alexander issuing the papal bull in 1453 that said all indigenous people around the world are heathens, pagans, and savages. That indigenous people have no soul. That indigenous people are the enemies of Christ. That indigenous people were to be put into perpetual slavery. That indigenous people, their property and their possessions were to be taken from them. That's what started it all. There was a number of other papal bulls. I believe there was 4 in total over the next 50 years issued by other subsequent popes as well. The final papal bull gave Portugal the southern hemisphere to go out, conquer, to claim those lands for Portugal, and to make them Christian nations. The northern hemisphere was given to Spain, so they could claim those lands for Spain and claim them as Christian nations for the Catholic Church. That's where the mission period started from. Then they went into Africa, India, Indonesia, the Pacific Islands, and then the Americas. And that's what brought the missions to California. In 1769, the Portola expedition came up. And that's what opened the way through. When the missions come in, a lot of people think that Junipero Serra was here to evangelize, to proselytize, to turn those Indians. Nothing could be further from the truth. Junipero Serra came to California to fulfill the dictates of those papal bulls, to take the land, to take the possessions. Junipero Serra was the founder of the California mission system, first of all. He, prior to coming to California, he was in Mexico, and he was working down there with one part of the community he worked with was a Jewish community. They came from Europe, and they brought him to the New World, trying to take the Jewish out of them, and they promised to become Catholic. They were looking for a place to survive. And so whenever he was working with the Jewish in Mexico, he never believed that they truly converted. And so whenever he came to California, he was convinced that he had to break the culture before they would truly convert. And that's why he was so brutal. So when they came here, they looked to destroy our humanity, our spirituality, our culture, and our environment. Well, the way they would capture the Indians, a lot of people talked about, how the Indians came to the missions voluntarily. We have in our oral history, and it's documented as well, of the soldiers would go out and do an early morning raid. They would identify the village site that they were going to, where they would have the raid, and then the soldiers on horseback would attack that village site, and they would target the women. They would capture the women, and then they would tie them together, thumb to thumb, to form a human chain. Once all the women were captured, they'd start marching them back to the mission. And when they marched back to the mission, they knew the children would naturally follow their mothers. And they knew that it was just a matter of a short period of time before the husbands and the men would come in to be with their families. That's how many of the many Indians were taken to the missions at the beginning of the mission period. Once they got to the mission, they couldn't speak their language. They couldn't wear their clothing. They couldn't sing their songs. The men from the women from the children were separated. That was to break the culture. The children, they did not want the parents passing that knowledge onto the children until the parents were converted or the children were converted to Catholicism. There was whippings, brutality. I said they separated the women. The soldiers did not bring a bunch of their wives or families, and there wasn't a lot of other women here for them. And so they would go into that woman's barracks and just rape the women continuously. There was slavery. There was absolute slavery. The Indians were not allowed to leave. They were totally controlled by the church. That went on to the Mexican period. There was no labor force here. They were giving these huge land grants to the Mexicans who were well connected. And what they would do is they wanted to get these huge ranches with cattle, pigs, horses, sheep. And they were totally ruining the environment of the indigenous peoples, destroying the environment. There was no labor force here. So once again, the Indians were enslaved. There's a story in San Juan Bautista in 1839. One of the Indians tried to run away from one of those ranchos. They ran out and lassoed him by the neck and dragged him all the way back and left his body there to terrorize and put fear into the Indians. That if you run away, this is what's going to happen to you. That was slavery. Then came the American period, the California period. The year that California became a state in 1848, that was a year they discovered gold. Now you have thousands of people from across the United States and around the world coming to California to go stake their claim to their riches. And they're going up into the mountains, and the Indians were trying to protect their lands and prevent people from going to their lands. So all of a sudden we have an Indian problem. The federal government had a solution, and the California government had a solution. The federal government they negotiated treaties, 18 treaties for all California tribes, covering 8.5 million acres north to south. Our tribe signed that treaty. The commissioners that were sent to negotiate those treaties signed. They were sent to Washington to be ratified. The state of California did not want those treaties to be signed. They passed a resolution to oppose the ratification of those treaties. And then they sent a delegation of California state senators to lobby against the treaties being ratified. After a period of time, the governor ordered that those treaties be sealed for 50 years, and they were never signed. Our treaties that we signed were sabotaged by the state of California. The state of California had their own plan. They wanted extermination. The governor in the very first State of the Union said that there will be a war against the California Indians. That is to be expected. That was their plan. A couple years later, they passed one of the very first treasury bonds that was paid by the state of California was to pay for the extermination of California Indians. Today, they issue bonds for railroad improvement, for waterways, for housing, for schools, for parks. But can you imagine issuing a bond to pay for the extermination of California Indians? They were paid bounty money. They were paid 25 cents to $5 bounty. It was pretty average for every dead Indian. They paid militias rather, to go up in the mountains to find the Indians and to kill them. They were paying people to hunt down human beings to kill them. After that period of time, they passed laws where they could kidnap the children. Because once again, they're trying to take the Indian out of the children. It wasn't uncommon for them to kill the parents and take the children in and sell them. The prices that I hear are boys typically would sell for $150, and they were used for very hard labor. Girls, there wasn't a lot of females. There wasn't a lot of women here in California for the men that were here. And so girls, they sold for a higher price. They were sold for $300. And they were sold for very bad purposes to be used by those people in most cases. There was indentured servitude. Indentured servitude is slavery. There's records of Indians being enslaved in California into the 1930s. That's less than 100 years ago. People were born. People are alive today when there was legalized Indian slavery here in California. This history's never told.
All right, we are back. I'm not sure if Opium is back yet. So we'll just drop down until I see that he has his camera on. Having a conversation around Leonard. What you guys just watched during that break was an oral history, very powerful, and an oral history of what my ancestors went through. And I want you to really look at that particular piece and make the parallels between what's going on with not just Leonard's people, but Leonard individually in particular, and how that mirrors the same colonial aesthetics. It mirrors the same. It's identical. It's just evolved. It's like someone going back, or someone in the future who never gave up colonialism and going back to the past and putting themselves in front of in front of a colonialist. It's like I'm you in the future. So like this is what you look like. That's how I see when I hear that, and it's very gut wrenching too because they're talking about my people. It's gut wrenching. I wanted to get into this next half of the conversation in regards to not just Leonard, but I wanted to take a deep dive into how you use your work, your artistry to put these individuals' lives out there for people to see. What's the process of that like, man, as an artist, and also trying to stay in the lane of being an activist, being someone who is rooted in indigeneity, who is indigenous? How do you navigate, my guy? I'm asking for not just tips, but I'm also asking for the viewers, because we don't see a whole lot of raptivists. We don't see a whole lot of activists that are artists, that are music artists, and when we do see them, I feel like the process of which that you as an artist goes through doesn't get highlighted very clearly. So if you could just break down, like, what's the process of making music for political prisoners, for yourself, and for the people?
That's a really good question, and I'm glad that you kind of opened that up right now. It's something that I think definitely should be talked about more. There's a handful there's many underground artists, so to speak, such as myself, who are also activists, and who use our voices in the spotlight, if you will, to shed light on things that are directly affecting us and people in our community. My family comes from like a long line of artists. My parents were part of the Living Theater in New York. And for people who don't know about the Living Theater, they were a very revolutionary theater group. They traveled all throughout Europe, no permits.
I think we might have lost him.
Of a town square in like Firenze, Italy, and their theater pieces were very like politically charged with messages in them. So anyway, I come from all of that, and
I'll be back. I can hear you guys still. I gotta get my door.
It's okay. It's always been important to me to kind of to use my voice to do that. And once I got involved with Jericho, I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Jalil Muntaqim, started going back and forth with him with letters, and he wanted to kind of put, he had a poetry book, and he wanted some of that poetry to be recited by hip hop artists. So I kind of facilitated that. I've produced many projects for other hip hop artists. So the whole, the process wasn't much different, but a lot of the times I'm doing this with someone who's incarcerated. So, you got to be careful because there's the whole Son of Sam law, and you don't want to get them in any more hot water than maybe they're already in or whatever. But so, it takes a bit of patience and a bit of going back and forth, sometimes speaking through other people. But the process isn't much different than, if I just produced someone's album who's not incarcerated or who's, on the outs, as they say.
Okay. I want to say I apologize. My neighbor every month gives me food and stuff so that he gets like a subscription, and he gives me what he can't eat. And so he just knocked on the door. And so I had to take that to the kitchen. So I want to apologize. No, I think what you do is very vital. And it's also rooted in real. When I think of hip hop, when I think of rap, when I think of music, when I think of artistry, it comes from the soul. It should always come from the soul. And when I hear your work, it's genuine. It's not like me going and listening to a mainstream media artist where it's relatively the same beat, the same hook, the same lingo, not really talking about liberation, not really talking about the exploitation of the music industry, none of that, like not even bringing up shit, just like get your money, get your paper, drink your juice, and that's that. And it's like that's the type of stuff that I try and stay away from. And when I get an artist, one like you, who has helped with freeing somebody with your music, and is now helping Leonard, I think your type of work is way more important than say, and I'll just put it out there. I don't want to start no beefs or anything, but I think your music is more important for people to listen to than say a Macklemore's, because of how you didn't just. It's not like you started off one day and just did music. Like you from day one have been talking about what you do on a physical level. And I think that's something that's missing from the game in of it itself, is people don't actually write or talk or rap or sing about what they actually are about. And they create this fabricated illusion that of these types of lifestyles that only greedy elites petty bourgeois would be able to live up to, versus what your music illustrates is like, look, we live in a world where we got important people that need to be highlighted. We got real life situations that are going on, and we need you to care about it. And so for one, I just wanted to say thank you, because your music it is something I play on a regular. Right on. Especially when I found out, and I'm going to be getting those reels up. Everything that I do as far as for Leonard, I'm going to try and piece your work into it. Right on. I'd love, and I'm on screen while we're live, I'd love for you to help me out, if you could, with creating a new intro, if we could, I would love to do that. Whether it's like a death by incarceration strictly for Leonard, like an intro for what we do on Tuesdays, and everybody. But I'd love to work with you on something like that, because I think it's important. I think it's very important for us to highlight artists like yourself, 100%. And to continue to do so. My next question is in regards to the work that you have done as earlier as the Santa Cruz. If you could just go over that event and what that was like, and just in general how the ad hoc committee was in reciprocity with that event.
Yeah, definitely. And just really quickly, what you were speaking on earlier, thank you so much. Like, that definitely means a lot to me. And a lot of artists such as myself, we've done or tried the mainstream stuff. I wasn't always this like political. I mean, this is something that's part of me and that I've, has always been part of me since I was a child. But, I went through the gangster rap phase. I'm a big fan of gangster rap. I listen to all kinds of different music, but, I was in a group, in like an 8-person group in the, in the hyphy days in the Bay Area. So this is definitely something I've grown into, but, and it's also a choice as an artist, to like, am I going to do what like record labels or what mainstream and the radio wants to hear, which is basically, talking about killing your own people, drugs, women, alcohol, which is definitely a part of life and a part of the streets and all of that. But to me, real hip hop is like Dr. Dre once said, we're like reporters from the hood and from the inner city. We're telling you what's really happening where in our communities where we're growing up and how we're, and how we're living. So it's important to me to, to highlight real things and to speak on real things. And before my daughter was born, a good friend of mine said, what you're doing is cool right now, Opium. But he said, when your daughter's like 15 and she really wants to listen to your music, are you going to be okay with her, hearing you speak about, this, that, and the third? And that was something I really had to think about. And my music now, as you said, it's true to myself. It's true to who I really am, and I feel like it comes across and comes out that way. So thank you for highlighting that, and definitely much appreciated. In terms of the Santa Cruz show, it was an amazing show. It was hosted by Tony Gonzalez and Aim West.
Okay.
And
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Yeah. So me personally, like going in there, I was like, wow, this is like a big honor for me. And, I've met Aimsters here and there, but I've never been to an event where they were like full on part of it. There was also an art show that was kind of like a history of AIM from many, protest posters, pictures from standoffs, like everything you can think of. They had, banners out there, like "We're not your mascots" with the Braves logo and different logos like X'd out. So for me being an Indigenous, person, it was like very uplifting and inspiring to be there and to be part of that. But, so yeah, it was an art show. It was hosted by Tony Gonzalez, who is I believe the leader of AIM West. And it also featured Rigo 23, who I actually got to meet and speak with. And interestingly enough, he's a fan of my dad's music. He used to go to this club, Nicky's, in the Lower Haight in San Francisco, where my dad DJ'd. So we were kind of talking about that, but he's the artist who made this 12-foot tall statue of Leonard, which is absolutely amazing. I've seen the feat many times, like when after the sunrise ceremony at Alcatraz, people have like vending tables and stuff after the ceremony. And so anyway, I've seen the feet out there many times before, but I've never seen the whole statue. It's completely carved out of redwood trees.
Oh, wow.
It's 12 feet high. And it's basically mimicked off of a self-portrait that Leonard did of himself. But it's very breathtaking, and it's like this, huge towering statue. So anyway, the statue was there. He was speaking. Many different people spoke about Leonard and spoke about AIM, and me and Maria, Gina Tracker were both there, speaking about the ad hoc committee. We had a table there. A lot of people donated. A lot of people were signing this petition we have through Amnesty International. Yeah, there's the statue right there. And unfortunately, I don't have all the details on it, but I feel like this is an ongoing thing, and it's probably another week or so. It's going to be at at the event where it was, Barrios Unidos, I believe is the name of the community center that it's at. So if you're in the Santa Cruz area, it's definitely worth checking out. You know, there were amazing singers, drummers, members of Leonard's family. It was a very uplifting and like, inspiring event.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you were, for one, able to meet up with some very powerful people. Some very deep root. Again, when you said it surprised me. I was like, "Whoa, I should have been there."
No, when I seen the flyer, when I first got sent the flyer, my friend was like, "Oh yeah, I was telling Rigo about you, and he knows about your dad and your music." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's dope. I want to try and get out there." And then he sent me a picture of the flyer and it said, sponsored by Tony Gonzalez and AIM West. I said, like, oh shit, this like,
that's not an event. That's a standoff.
Yeah, exactly. Like time to get the boots out and lace them up. Like this ain't just some, this isn't some letter writing event. Like this is some real deal shit happening, Yeah,
and it just goes to show you the severity of the situation, and it also shows you that AIM is still here. AIM has always been here. Just because Leonard was essentially the fall guy for the fucking feds doesn't mean that AIM stopped there. I was a part of an AIM chapter. I still have connections to the AIM chapter that I was a part of in Southern California. I don't know of an AIM chapter here in Nevada. But I'm a part of AIM. I've been a part of AIM. I don't put this flag up just because I'm Indigenous. No, I put this flag up because I'm a part of AIM. It's deeply rooted in my ideology that that AIM is on an international level, and it has. I said on many occasions, I've seen comrades that have messaged me saying, "Hey, we're getting ready to start an AIM chapter," or we got the AIM flag flying in Australia, New Zealand, other Aboriginal places that were affected by colonialism. And so I want to highlight AIM is still here, and we're still in very much so large numbers. So again, fuck around, find out. That's all I'm gonna say.
And they've been here this whole time. I remember being a kid at powwows with my mom and dad and seeing like all the Aimsters with their hats and the feathers and their vests and whatnot. And being at this event in Santa Cruz, I kind of somehow, I forgot about that memory, and it like came back to me being there. Like, so that was very like humbling to me and like kind of full circle. And even my mom is very much still into activism, and she was she hit me up and she was just like, "I'm so proud of you that you're like here at this event." And I was talking to her about that, and she said, "I remember when we used to go to those powwows and the Aimsters were like super deep there." So anyway, I was very very happy to be part of the event and to be there.
Yeah, and I know that there's some events that I think we're lined up to be a part with or be at, and so hopefully I can be there in attendance with you guys this next round of events to be able to, from a broadcast perspective, film this and get this documented.
Definitely,
and put the word out there. I have an appointment that I have to get to, Opium, and I think Ryan has something that he has to do as well. We got about, I would have to say, like 20 more minutes. I wanted to get into a conversation, if we could, around. I feel like we've already talked about the executive clemency, but what Leonard is needing from a lawyer perspective. We have lawyers right now that are working pro bono, some of which that need to get to certain places, need to fly to certain places, and so. If you could just share, the importance of this new legal team that we have with Jennifer, and what they have been able to accomplish in this short amount of time that we've been a part of the committee, just the importance of that side of the ad hoc committee.
Yeah, no, definitely. I don't want to speak too much on the legal side because that's not my realm, and some some stuff is not has not been made public yet, but there's definitely new efforts, coming in the new year that people should look out for. As you said, Jennifer and her team, they're amazing. She's been instrumental in moving things forward for Leonard. Prior to the parole hearing and then the denial, a lot of work and energy has been focused into that. And, this was something on their end that was kind of expected. And I think it was expected from a lot of his supporters and from us, like my personal feeling was, wow, it'd be great if he actually got paroled, but I'll be pretty surprised if he does, because I've seen this whole song and dance with other political prisoners. I've seen it over the years with Leonard. So anyway, it was something that was, in some ways expected. So they were definitely prepared for that. A big part of what's happening now is trying to get this, this medical transfer. Hotel rooms, airplane flights. None of that's cheap. None of that's free. So any donations that people donate on the website helps go towards that. There's many ways to contribute to Leonard and to contribute to his lawyers being able to, do what they need to do. For those who don't know, you kind of touched on it earlier, but Leonard is an amazing artist. He has many, many paintings that are breathtaking and amazing and beautiful. Those can be found on our website as well, freeleonardpeltiernow.org. We have a bunch of merch. We have T-shirts. I think we have some coffee mugs. We have, I think, a collab shirt we did as well. But all of that stuff's on our website under the merch section, and all of that goes to Leonard and to his to the lawyer fund to initiate this this medical transfer. And I guess it would also be a good time to kind of mention that currently people that want to take parts in the calls to action, as I said earlier, definitely join our Action Network page. We're also asking people to reach out to the Senate Judiciary Committee through Joe Ossoff and demand the medical transfer and the release of Leonard. If you haven't signed this petition through Amnesty International, definitely do that. And I would say those are kind of the two main things that we're pushing right now. And again, all of this info, the flyers with the with the different numbers and websites to call and all that's on our social media. At I am Peltier. It's also on the website, freeleonardpeltiernow.org. And we definitely will be, we definitely have some new calls to action that will be coming up, and you can look out for those through the newsletter and also on social media.
Yeah, and I want to respond to someone who's in the chat just briefly. Baby Ghost, I don't really know who you are or what you're about, but I will say this. Your words don't and will not affect this committee. This committee was put together with Leonard. So again, you could sit there and say that you see through it, you see lies of deception, whatever you think. But at the end of the day, we just gave Leonard's, I think it was Leonard's daughter, right? Or Leonard's niece, who's a part of this committee. There's a lot of people that are involved that I don't think you know about, and I think that you're a troll. And so, that this is a big part of why freeing Leonard is important, because we have people out here right now that literally will try and justify slandering us for doing so. And so, yeah, that gets you banned indefinitely. I don't condone stuff like that. But yeah, I want to say thank you, Opium, for coming on. You're actually gonna be on next Tuesday, right? With all the rest of us. Okay. So you
Yeah,
guys-
and I just wanted to say really quickly, like, you know, thank you for having me. It's been great chopping it up with you guys, and I'm really looking forward to this being, you know, like a ongoing thing and an ongoing conversation, and you know, a lot more people should and need to know who Leonard is and what he's done for his people, and this man needs to be freed and needs to be home with his family.
Exactly. Again, you'll be back Tuesday. As far as this network goes, we'll be back tomorrow with a well-rounded show. I think we have a guest. I'm not too sure yet. I actually have to check. There's so much shit we've been doing lately.
Calm down, Isaac. Calm down.
Just know Sunday we do have a guest. We got James Ray coming on from Democratic Socialists of America, Philly, who also, I'll just say on screen, to you, Opium, I don't know if the word got passed around through the committee, but they're wanting to work with the committee to figure out ways that they can help Leonard, figure out ways that they can help us, the committee, creating conferences, programs, whatever it may be. So, you know, like when I said, when I was brought to this, you know, committee, when I was brought to this board to sit on this board with you guys, I said I was going to expunge all of my resources, all of the people that I know. I was going to put myself out there. I don't care how big the name is, to get Leonard, you know, exposure. And so that's really what my goal is to free Leonard and to make sure that, you know, his voice never gets silenced. And a big part of that was this episode today, speaking about him, highlighting your work. My God, I just have to say, like, your music for me is important to the movement.
Thank you.
Important.
Thank you, man.
To what we do, because it's rooted in realness. It's not rooted in no lollipop ass, you know, sucker, you know, sucker MC type shit. Like, it's not like, it's nothing like that. It's rooted in deep thought, theory, and soul, and caring. And
well,
so I just
you
have
know
to
your
highlight
shit's
that.
good if we have to dig to find it.
Right.
Right on. Yeah, and you know, I come from that whole like hip hop era and generation where, you know, now it's like you can say whatever, no one's fact checking you, no one's checking your street cred. Like when I was coming up, if you were on stage talking some gangster shit on the mic, like some real gangsters would come up to you and they'd be like, "Oh, you want to talk that gangster stuff? Like, let's see how gangster you really are." So you had to really walk what you were talking, you know. That really means a lot to me. Thank you. And I do want to just shout out the fact that I am producing a compilation for Leonard. It's called The Outcry, a compilation for Leonard Peltier. The first single and video is now on all streaming platforms. It's called We Still Here. Features myself, Swiggle Mandela, and Mike Crenshaw from Portland, Oregon. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, all that. And I also have the second single, which will probably be dropping very soon in the early year. So you guys can definitely look out for that. Definitely connect with me on socials, opium_SABBAH. And, you know, support underground political activists, rappers such as myself, you know, because a lot of what we do, we pay for out of pocket, you know, for travel, you know, spreading the word. And, you know, I don't do this. Of course, I do it to get my art out there and everything, but I also do it because this is part of who I am. And I think it's important to highlight these political prisoners and to educate people and to give them their just due, because the path they walked, you know, led me and my generation to be here to carry the torch and to hold it down as my parents, you know, taught me to do, and as I'm teaching my daughter to do as well. So that's something that's very, very important to me. And big ups to you guys for, you know, for what you're doing and for the awareness that you're spreading with your show. And yeah, you know, many thanks. It was great to be here with you guys.
Yeah, super awesome. And thank you so much again for coming on. It was awesome. This is great.
Of course.
Yeah, and
I can't wait to listen to the new song on the way to go pick up my kid this afternoon.
Right on, right on.
Yeah, we're gonna drop you down, Opium. Again, it's such a pleasure to have you on for this first episode, and you'll be back
Same
Tuesday.
here.
So
Yeah.
so we'll be in touch.
Yeah,
Again,
we'll do this soon again.
all right, thank you again.
Cool. Peace, everyone. Thanks for having me.
No problem. All right, that was such a dope conversation.
Yep.
You know, I think for the most part, you know, these are needed.
Yes.
And that's why I'm going to hopefully, you know, try and do individual conversations with the rest of the committee. And, you know, like how I did with Opium, how I did with Dawn, did with Kalanji. And then coming together at one point, you know, like the fucking Power Rangers,
right.
and just completely obliterating, you know, any type of false narratives in regards to Leonard. You know, this is something that's very important to me. This type of work.
It's a Voltron for my generation.
Yeah, exactly. You said Voltron course. Yeah. Yeah, and I could even say another team. Let's stay on track.
There you go. Yeah. Thank you. Stay on track.
It was such a good show. You know, and I think, you know, relatively speaking, these are gonna continue. They're gonna continue to happen.
I hope so.
You know, we went from doing Monday, Wednesday, and Saturdays to now going weekly, you know, and it's worked. You know, and through that process, I've highlighted that Leonard needs to be free, and people again, you know,
but we can't do it without our subscribers and supporters and the people that watch on the regular, like, you know,
exactly.
Like none of this works without you guys, so we really appreciate it.
And you know, a big part, you know, of keeping this afloat, you know, as stated in all of our shows, is that we're donation based. You know, so below are ways that you can help out by any means necessary, as Malcolm X would say. You know, this work is not that comes at a price. You know, physical, mental, verbal, financial price. And you know, I'm on here sick, mind you.
Yeah, I'm
sick, and I'm on here.
2 days in a row.
2 days in a row. Yesterday we went straight hours. I don't know how.
You gave him 4.5 hours yesterday.
I had my flu game yesterday. That was my flu game.
I saw somebody in the chat mention that, and I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was my flu game yesterday.
100%. You were on point. Look, today was on point. Opium was such a great guest, and I hope to continue these conversations as well, because, you know, we talk enough about how nobody's having these conversations, so we're just going to do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can say this right now. I'm gonna just be
slow down.
Let me slow down.
Slow
down. Next week. I don't know exactly what day, but I have secured arguably one of the most important conversations of this network's existence. I will be sitting down with Matt Kennard, who is an investigative journalist. He is also a activist. He's also an author. And so we're going to be getting into into exposing the genocide through his book and through his lens and work, particularly his book, The Racket. And so I'm hoping I can read a couple of chapters before we get to that conversation, so I can ask him some particular questions in regards to that. But I wanted to leave off with individuals knowing this, is that I've came across this understanding, and it's not an understanding that I origined. I would have to say that, you know, there's an individual who was the mentor to Frantz Fanon. His last name's César. And he exemplified through his lens that, you know, Europeans, and I can say this, settlers only identify tragedies, fascism, whatever you want to call it. You can mix the words around. You can take the word out and put in something else. They don't identify it until it happens to them.
Yes.
And we live in a society right now where if this was a 50-year-old white man that is blind,
white man that's been in jail for 50 years,
a white man that's been in jail for 50 years and that is innocent, has lost his eyesight, you know, needs dental work, is bound by a walker, needs a CPAP machine, which again, if you need a CPAP machine, that also means you need oxygen as well, 24/7. So that means you have to be. These are all things that again, through the lens of if this was a white man, this would be classified as torture. Okay. But under the guises of that he's indigenous and he is now made to be out to be an example for those who want to follow in those footsteps, you know, he's factored as inhuman. So I just want society to really understand that, the viewers to really understand that. And going back to put your parents in this position. If not your parents, your grandparents. If not your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, whoever it may be, someone who you hold dear to your heart. Put them in just close your eyes and just picture everything that Leonard has gone through and apply that to someone who you love. And tell me right now, if you don't come to the same conclusion that they need to be free. Absolutely. I think that's where we need to leave people off at. I'm going to answer these questions.
MJ, I would like to talk to David Nathan real quick. Because
are we asking a violent criminal to be quote unquote nice?
I don't know what that meant, but
is the facility holding him?
That's what I would like for you and a cadre of your comrades to figure out, please and thank you.
Yeah, and I would also say this too. You highlighted something that I think is something that I'll ask the committee. Opium's still here, so maybe we can get him back on. Maybe we can get him back up here to answer this question if he would be in agreement with it. But I personally feel that we should be outside of this prison the same way that you said that people during that stretch where they had went to Area 51, you had thousands of people that were there. We need thousands of people outside of this prison.
Yes, we need people to show up physically.
You know,
and because that's really how you apply pressure, especially in these moments, and especially like at a place like a prison, putting our bodies on the line is the least we can do for someone who has given their entire life to the cause. And so, like, I've been advocating for that. I think that like anybody that can should. I don't, I'm not trying to make people go that can't go. Don't fucking like spend your last $20 to fucking buy a bus ticket unless you want to. And if you really want to, then do it. But like, if you can afford to, get down there and cause a scene. What that looks like is up to you. I'm not going to dictate how you move as adults. I would ask that you are respectful to Leonard and who he is, and what kind of human being he's been throughout all this. But
and so we do have Opium. Bring
Opium
back.
If he wants to come, I didn't want to put him on the spot because this is tricky waters to talk about. But
all good. I was just I wanted to keep.
I think.
I mean, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I was just saying, I was just continuing to listen to the show. People have mixed feelings about what you guys were just talking about. From a legal perspective, we have been asking people to not, show up at Coleman and do anything out front. Just because with everything we're trying to move forward with the medical transfer and everything, this could impact Leonard and the other prisoners there negatively. Things like that have happened in the past, and then they were punished in effect because of that. And at this point, the best way to support is to, call your senators, reach out to the Judiciary Committee, and to sign this petition through Amnesty International. And while I'm still here, I'm glad I came on because I was sitting here listening to you guys. And I don't even know what the comment said or whatever earlier, but as I was sitting here listening to the show, it was like really bothering me. And I was like, man, I wish I would have like said something when Isaac had kind of chimed in about that. So anyway, I don't know who that person was or what exactly they said in the chat, but I will say this, the ad hoc committee was handpicked and put together by Leonard to accept donations on his behalf, to speak on his behalf, and to, do things on his behalf. And, people that I understand there's confusion and, all those kinds of things. You can go to the social media page. There's the audio recording of Leonard stating why he started the ad hoc committee and his reasons for that. And I'll just say that if you are a true supporter and advocate of Leonard's, doing what that person just did and what other people have done in the past and sometimes are still doing, you're attempting to take away energy that us committee members and other members of Jericho and different groups that are in alignment with us are doing, and you're taking away from Leonard's to be able to get his freedom. Yeah. We're not doing anything that's, not being authorized or pushed forward by Leonard. And we're not going to let anyone or anything like that detour us from the goal, which is to spread awareness about who Leonard Peltier is and to get this man out of prison. So
exactly, and I'm glad that
absolutely. Thank you for coming back and
came back.
That.
Yeah,
appreciate that.
Of course.
That's awesome. No, that's great.
Of course,
it's super important for individuals to know how deeply connected this coalition is, and again, it's a coalition of multitudes of organizations, of movements that are working in reciprocity for not just even Leonard. Like, it's also, I could throw in the names of Imam Jamil Al-Amin, Mumia Abu Jamal. We are all in connectivity to make sure that these individuals are out there, that their faces are put out there, their intellect is put out there, and that they're respected, and that most importantly they're free. So again, thank you for coming back.
No worries.
In the rap industry, this would be an encore.
There you go.
So that's we got our first encore with Opium on here.
No doubt.
I think for one, that might be a place for us to close out. Is hey, we ain't with the smoke, we ain't with the bullshit, but we're sure as shit with the smoke. We're here for Leonard. We'll be here for Leonard till Leonard is free. And that's a principled revolutionary suicidal mindseted stance. Revolutionary suicidal mindset.
Yeah.
I might not live to see Leonard free, but at least I helped in that process, and so that's where my heart is, and that's where my mindset is as well. With that being said, though, you guys, I think it is time for us to close out. I want to say again, thank you, Opium, for coming on. Ryan, as always, being a dope ass co-host. We'll be back tomorrow. Not too sure exactly what we'll be talking about, other than California tsunamis, getting into some catastrophe, climate change, about political prisoners, all that shit, all the bad shit.
Hopefully the man has stuff going on, man. So
hopefully, no, I think you're on to something, Ryan. I think that the United Healthcare CEO, Shooter, I think he's our DB Cooper. I think he's our new DB Cooper. This dude is gone. I don't think they're catching this guy.
Poof. Kaiser Soze.
And so much,
Kaiser Soze, exactly.
The way I see it is that chicken's coming home to roost, and homeboy probably made a lot of people happy, and he has thousands, if not millions, of people that are aiding in his escape, which is cool. So much so that I will highlight that in December 8th, everybody go to Central Park, wear a green hoodie and a black mask and a backpack and just fuck with the NYPD. But we'll talk about all this tomorrow. Again, thank you, Opium. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you to the viewers.
Thank you.
We'll be back tomorrow with a live stream. Hopefully not 4 hours, but if we do 4
But I
hours,
want to say thank you for the new music tonight too.
Yeah,
I got something brand new to listen to. So I'm excited. So,
Right on. Oh, and I forgot to mention earlier, very quickly, the 20th of this month, we have an online event. The ad hoc committee has an online event. We'll be screening the movie Warrior, The Life of Leonard Peltier.
Yep.
If you're not aware of this movie, you need to be aware of it. This will clarify a lot of things about Leonard and teach you a lot about Leonard. The director and producer, Susie Bear, as well as the one and only Ward Churchill, will be discussing the movie after we view it. You can find the Zoom registration link on our social media pages. Best to connect with us on Instagram at I am Peltier.
Yeah, I am Peltier and at opium_Sabah or SABBAH. So we'll be back, you guys. I sound like 10-second calm, but it's all good. I'm gonna close out, you guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
I'm the cult of personality. The cult of personality.
Add it to the blacklist. I never want to hear that music again. Once prosperously.
I'm the cult of personality. The cult of personality.
Add it to the blacklist. I never want to hear that music again.